Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another incredible brand new Aulita Heroes release. This time we've got the Styracosaurus. Now yes, if you are thinking, did they not have a Styracosaurus previously? They did. They had a much smaller version, but this version is a whole lot bigger, and it's definitely a whole lot more upgraded, I guess you could say, and far and away is the coolest version of the Styracosaurus that they have released. Maybe the coolest looking Styracosaurus I've ever seen. This thing is just insane. It feels like it's like a kaiju version of a Styracosaurus, and like it was almost disguising itself as a mountain at some point and now has just basically unearthed itself and is here before us looking absolutely incredible. On top of course, this insanely cool model, you also get a fun little card which basically has like the silhouette of the head of the Styracosaurus. So let's go ahead and jump to a closer look and we'll check out this incredibly cool figure from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Styracosaurus, you can instantly see, I think, what I was talking about when I was stating that it looks honestly like it was like a mountain that just basically like unearthed itself. It really does have that look and feel with all of these kind of like armored ridges and spikes all over the frill. It is unreasonably cool looking and is far and away one of the most highly detailed Styracosaurus I think I've ever seen. And I love the fact that they've applied like some goldish colors up here in the frill all over this, and as well as of course like some brownish tones, almost like some purples that I can see. There's a lot of variation of color up here in that area, which honestly helps that whole area to stand out so nicely. As you move down into the face, the colors down here as well look great. You've got some light grays, you have some darker kind of grays, and almost like some really dark purplish tones. You've got a black there in the eye socket. You've got more of that black moving along the beak. We can see the nostrils sculpted out. The skin texture looks really nice, very lifelike. You've got some more kind of bumpy, kind of like osteoderms and ridges and stuff down here on the lower jaw. Those are painted out with a nice kind of an off-white or a light gray, which looks really cool. We do have a brownish tone for the beak. The beak itself also has a little bit of a satin shine to it, which I really quite like as well. And then of course you have the nasal horn here, which you can see looks really good. I love the paintwork here. Very smooth transitioning as we start out with kind of like a reddish tone, transitioning to like a yellowish green, and then a dark tip there, which looks really nice. Again, the paintwork from Aulita Heroes is some of the best in my opinion that you'll see anywhere. They've done a great job of bringing this thing to life in perfect fashion. We do of course have an articulated jaw, which is really fun. You can see it works really nicely. We've got the tongue sculpted out in there and painted. You can see painted with a reddish tone. And then if you take a look at the inside of the mouth up there, it's a little hard to really get in there to see it, but it looks pretty darn nice overall. And we do have that reddish tone, what looks to be pretty much everywhere on the inside of the mouth. It's just that the shadows are just overtaking it and making it impossible to really get in there to see. You can see the eyes as well are painted with a very creepy light tone, kind of like a light gray and then a white spot, and it just makes the dinosaur look somehow even more creepy, which is amazing. I adore the look of this figure. As you move up into the spikes moving along the course of the frill, you can see those as well are again painted with that same similar style to what we saw there with the nasal horn. Again, the same colors as you can see, like yellows and greens and blacks and reds, all sorts of variation of color to those spikes as well as you move around the entire head sculpt of our insanely cool Styracosaurus. As you move back, you do have articulation. Of course, you've got a spot right here which allows you to move the head up and down. Trying to get it so I can hold the second part here, still up and down and a little left and right action. But then you've also got this spot here, which once you actually start moving those two, you can see it's really smooth, very nice, very natural, very nice articulation overall. It works great, moves really nicely. You can of course swivel and tilt the head and everything if that's what you would like to do. So the articulation there works really well. As you move down here along the underside of the neck and throat, you can see the throat itself. You can also see, of course, the perfect paintwork that we always find from Aulita Heroes. Really nice kind of shading and stuff that has been applied. You've got some nice brownish tones as you move up here along the side of those wrinkles. And then as you continue to move through, the majority of the Styracosaurus does have dark coloration to it, but you can see kind of like dark variations of gray
grays and purples, as well as dry brushing throughout. You can see there are a few more kind of like ridges back here in the shoulder area of the Styracosaurus. Those are painted and highlighted with a goldish tone. As you move up here into the back of the dinosaur, you can see more of that dry brushing I was just speaking of, but you can also see again just how bumpy and wavy the back is, continuing to give it that look of almost looking like a mountain, like this dinosaur was in hibernation or something, and over time kind of began to look like a mountain, and that's why it has this look to it. I don't know, it just looks crazy cool. But as you move down, again, you lead down into the front leg. You can see the musculature is nicely highlighted. The texturing also looks good, and there's again a ton of variation of colors. We have blacks and grays and purples throughout. You've even got lighter tones with like even orangish browns in the front of the leg. It's really hard to pick out each and every color that Aulita Heroes includes on their figures. You can articulate the leg forward and back and also out away from the body, actually pretty far, which you can see right there. You as well can articulate the elbow forward and back very nicely. It probably could swivel, but the way that the articulation is created doesn't really allow that area to, but you can articulate and swivel the wrists of the dinosaur, which is really nice. And then of course you can go forward and back with that as well. As you lead down, the toes look quite nice as far as their sculpting goes. You can see we have like a gold for the nails as well. As you lead back into the stomach, you can see more kind of wrinkling and stuff in certain areas as far as the skin. Again, tons and tons of subtle variation of color moving through. We again have the rear leg here, which you can see articulates at the hip region, forward and back. Kind of out away from the body. Yep, definitely out away from the body a little bit. And then you have the knee, which can go forward and back as well. And then, of course, the ankle, which can swivel and go forward and back. So really nice posability through the course of the figure. But again, the paintwork is absolutely spectacular. As far as the way it's applied, you can see so much depth to the paint jobs of these Aulita Heroes figures. I don't know how long it takes them to paint one of these, but it must take a very long time because there is just so much color included. We've got the muscle definition displayed nicely in the thigh and the calf, which looks really cool. And again, the nails painted with a gold as you move down into the feet. And then as you move back up here, you can see some really nice looking scale detail leading out into the tail. You can also see again that kind of bumpy scoot-like appearance moving along the back of the tail of the dinosaur, which again you can see from up above. And then you've got a spot of articulation here and here, so you can articulate the tail. Left, right, up, down. Same deal here, left, right, up, down. So that allows you to basically pose the tail however you would like, and again get some nice left to right turns and leans for the figure. And then of course once you turn it around, it's going to look pretty much the same again from both sides. An unbelievable Styracosaurus. Like, this is absolutely far and away one of my favorite Styracosaurus now in my collection. It is just so unbelievably unique and incredibly cool.
As far as a size goes, when I say it's huge, that's no exaggeration. For a length, you're looking at about 15.5 inches or around 39.5 centimeters. And then for a height, the highest point would be this spike right here. You were looking at right around 6.25 inches or about 16 centimeters roughly. And of course the height would be dependent on the way you pose the dinosaur, because of course you could have its head up higher and stuff, which would then increase the height. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Aulita Heroes Styracosaurus, and you can see it's gigantic. Just as I told you, it is massively larger than everything else standing here before it. We've also got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to our Styracosaurus, showing you that those as well are way smaller. I think the best comparison I could probably give you as far as, ceratopsians of a similar size would be with the Habitat Defender Triceratops from Mattel next to our Styracosaurus, and you can see that the Styracosaurus is only a little bit smaller, which in turn shows you that it is really quite large. And to really give you a good idea on how much larger these newer figures are compared to the older Aulita Heroes releases, here is the original version of the Styracosaurus next to the newer version of the Styracosaurus. And I think it's pretty obvious that the size has increased drastically, as in general has the overall appearance. You can very much so see that they've retooled the figure a whole lot to give it a bit of a different look, maybe even sculpting it entirely again from scratch because it does look so different. But at the same time, it does look really neat to have these two next to each other. So if you did acquire the first version of the Styracosaurus from Aulita Heroes, you can get yourself the larger version and basically have like an adult and baby. And then for another Aulita Heroes comparison, we also have the Pelta, which I recently reviewed on the channel next to the Styracosaurus, showing you that these guys are kind of similar in size, with the Pelta being just a little bit longer. And then the final comparison I have is with the Aulita Heroes Ceratosaurus. I've been using this guy in comparisons the entire way through with these newest reviews, so I figured what the heck, I might as well bring him in with the Styracosaurus as well. So this brand new massive Aulita Heroes Styracosaurus is absolutely incredible. Again, as we move through these figures, I keep thinking, wow, this is my favorite, and then I review the next one, and I think, wow, this is my favorite, and then I review the next one, and that thought process just continues on, which I think says a lot about how good this newest round of figures is. When it comes to the overall quality of their figures, I feel like they've never been better than they are currently. Everything is just working so well for these figures. You know, the sculpts are incredibly highly detailed. In my opinion, the best sculpts that they have produced so far. On top of that, the paint apps have been out of this world, somehow even better than they were previously, which is really impressive considering the paint jobs of Aulita Heroes have always been fantastic. And the articulation is really smooth, and on top of that, the ability for these figures to stand has been so nice. Like, some of the older ones did have a little bit of trouble standing at times, but these newer ones I have not had any issues with, so they've corrected everything as far as these figures go to pretty much perfect their trade at this point. And this Styracosaurus is, when it comes to the design, one of the coolest I've ever seen. The overall sculpt, like I said, has such a kaiju-ish look and feel, so if you are a fan of giant monsters, I feel like you're really going to enjoy this one. But just in general, if you are a fan of dinosaurs and you like stylized versions of them, these are absolutely the way to go. The sculpt of this Styracosaurus is fantastic in every way. Super highly detailed, but far and away one of the coolest designs I've ever seen for a Styracosaurus. And the paint apps, again, are really nicely done, nice and natural looking as far as the tones of color used, especially as far as the application of the paint as well. And of course, all of these figures continue to, on top of having a very stylized look, they also have a vintage look and feel, which is another of the many reasons I adore these. And you also have tons of articulation through the course of the figure, making it really fun to pose and display this one. So if you are interested, as always, I will include a link in the description to where you can head on over to the Etsy shop of Aulita Heroes and grab this from there. And of course, make sure you check them out on Instagram and follow them on there to keep up to date on everything they are creating, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.